Hello everybody, welcome back to the Malbeefance channel. Here we are in episode 5 of our series replay for Strategic Command World War II War in Europe. I apologize that this video is getting out late. I have been dealing with some medical issues, serious medical issues that have been affecting other family members, not me personally, but them. And so here we are. I'm able to finally get this video done, and I'll get it out. And let's go ahead and advance a turn and see what we get. Last turn, the Germans have broken the Sitzkrieg and have invaded the Low Countries, as you can see here. So let's get rolling. All right, so from First Lord of the Admiralty, Winston Churchill, the German occupation of Denmark presents us with a problem. As if the Germans are given the opportunity to use Iceland as a naval base, then our convoys could become extremely vulnerable to attack. It is therefore strongly recommended that we send an expedition to Iceland to prevent its use by the enemy. The mission, codenamed Operation Fork, will cost 25 production points. It will not consist of any significant troop numbers, as only a small number of Royal Marines are available. So while this expedition could not prevent a properly organized enemy invasion, it will be in sufficient strength to secure the island. Do you want to do this? Absolutely. Last thing I need is for the Germans to get into my rear and cause more problems for convoys than they're already going to. Okay, so we send garrisons to Iceland, occupy Reykjavik. Red Army HQ. Following our conflict with Finland, it has become apparent that our soldiers are under-equipped for winter warfare, and as a result, they suffered significant losses. Given that war with the Axis powers is virtually inevitable, it would be useful for us to take advantage of our recent experiences to better prepare the Red Army for winter warfare. If we set a process in motion now, we could provide winter clothing and equipment to our forces for just 50 production points. Through this investment, we will avoid suffering unduly from sickness during the winter when we are next at war. Do you want to do this? Yes, I do want to do this. I notice how they completely ignored the poor leadership going on at the beginning of that war also. But hey, you're not allowed to criticize socialism. U.S. Congress passes the cash and carry bill enabling the export of arms to the UK. Historical event, literally what it sounds like, cash and carry. They come in with the gold, hand over the gold, take the stuff, and head on back to England. The British strengthened their home guard. Wagan becomes French C&C and calls on France to evoke the spirit of 1789 and 1914. I really wouldn't invoke the spirit of 1789. No, no. That didn't end well. All right, ledger for next turn. All right, a little bit of German reinforcing there, just a little. Ugh. Oh. Yeah, the air war over France, definitely not in our favor. Well, we got that artillery there just in time. All right, I'm afraid that is it for the Netherlands. And so much for our defensive line in the north. And so the idea was to go ahead and hold these two hexes in the Ruhr Valley, hoping that they would focus German attention and give us a little bit better odds up in the Low Countries. French morale suffers as German forces advance. Yep, I don't doubt it. British national morale is boosted by having Winston Churchill as Prime Minister. Yes, it was. We shall fight on the beaches. Belgium surrenders. Oh, didn't save any of their units. Germany plunders 100, what was it, 182? Netherlands surrenders. Germany plunders 139 production points. Germany amends its Norwegian convoy routes to protect its ore supplies. British Royal Marines occupy Iceland. Yep. Iceland joins the Allies. Italy prepares for war. We knew this was coming. Refugees block roads affecting Allied supply into northern France. German morale is boosted as the Maginot Line is outflanked. The German advance spreads fear through French forces. Allied raiders disrupt Norway German convoys. And I need to go back to that Maginot Line outflanking comment. Alright, there is our combat loss summary. And the military activity summary. National morale effects. And some new units for Britain. We have number 11 fighters wing. And 4th Garrison. Mr. Garrison. So cover Norwich just to be safe. I mean, if I was the Germans trying to do a landing on England this early in the game, I would focus on going after one of the ports. So probably putting him up here in Norwich was not a good idea, but we can always redeploy later. All right, French heavy tanks. Sweet. Not at full strength, but okay. All right, so that earlier comment about the Maginot Line being outflanked. Now, here's the thing. It's a little controversial. Some people are going to tell me, nope, that's not how it went down. But from what I have studied, the Maginot Line was not extended to the English coast because the idea was that they wanted to channel German forces into the Low Countries. This would basically be a double-edged sword. The Germans, if they decide to take the easier route, they also bring in the Low Countries, such as it may. Now, yes, there was a monetary financial appropriations issue with extending the Maginot Line all the way to the English Channel. I'm sure that it played a part in the decision making, okay, but depending on whose history book you're reading, the primary reason that the Maginot Line was not extended all the way to the English coast was because the French wanted to force German strategy into coming through the Low Countries, okay. So just throwing that out there. Not saying it's right, but I mean I can see that when you also add in the manpower issue and you add in the financial issue. Okay, I can see somebody thinking, okay, yeah, let's do this. Let's go ahead and set up the Low Countries, and that way we force them to come onto our side because we forced the Germans to invade them in order to have an easier route into France. All right, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and start here in France. Now, some folks have made the comments that I need to pull French forces back. They're really not going to do me any good up here. And to a degree that is correct. So we're going to abandon the German territory. I'd like to keep a second defensive line. But it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do that. Alright, let's get British Air Force out of here. Yes, I know, not very sporting of me to take them all the way back to England, but I don't want the Air Force to be destroyed before I'm able to do anything with it. Alright, now I was going to try advance him up there. Keep him on the roads, just in case. I can only get him up 3 points. It's going to have to do. And we're not going to have any fighter cover, but I was kind of hoping all of their interceptors had been already used up. Damn, tactical bombers, and they have that bad of a odds against these guys? Holy smokes. Alright. Anything else I might be able to do with them? Doesn't look like it. Alright, let's get these guys somewhere further back. Alright, not really much of a defensive line there. It is pretty thin. I really don't want to give up that forest hex. That's decent defenses. Alright, might not be the smartest move. I don't know why the tactical bombers have such horrible odds. Alright, another comment that was made that makes sense to me is not throwing away the French fleet. I mean, both comments, both directions, whether it's using the French fleet on extremely risky missions or trying to save them for later. I mean, both arguments make sense to me, okay? So, but it doesn't look like the German Navy is going to come out and play, so let's go ahead and we'll switch over to convoy escort duty. Well, he's got plenty of supplies. Tell you what. Okay, he's already in fighter mode. So let's go ahead and have the we'll have the Royal Navy Air Force try to cover some of the French battlefield. Hopefully they can help out with that. Now he should be fully resupplied. Even though I'm sitting right off the coast, I'm still going to risk that going after those convoys. Oh, hello. All right, let's keep bringing you guys down. And submarine's in a lot of trouble. Excuse me, that U-boat. I know somebody's going to give me hell for that. So yeah, he's down to half strength, and his supplies are down half, so he's probably going to be heading home. Alright, so if Italy is going to be entering the war here, alright, hopefully I can slow them down just a little bit before they're on Marseille. Not a whole heck of a lot that I can do out here. Gotta leave somebody in Cairo. Now the Italian Navy is formidable. But the British Navy is just as formidable as long as I play them smart. Because they are kind of spread out. Alright, so Soviets. I spent all of their money. Yeah, get a little closer to the border. Can those guys do anything? Nope. Wait a minute. Can they no, they can't fortify. Yeah, probably not until actual war is declared. I'd like to have a few more units up here around Leningrad. I am not going to advance any closer to the Finnish border up here. I don't want to stretch my supply lines too far. I know I ought to put somebody here in Hanko. Let's see if I can get myself. Nope, don't even have enough for a garrison. Okay. Alright, so let's go to research next. Americans have 39. Alright, let's put that into production technology, keep that going. Hopefully we can build up enough quickly I can go ahead and I can max out research spending in industrial technology, production technology, and logistics. Give the Americans as much advantage as possible when they enter the war. Now, England's working on infantry weapons, command and control, industrial technology, production, logistics. I could overspend on logistics. Okay, so what do we got? 257. How much for ground attack weapons? 275. That'll leave me less than 100. I was hoping to be able to do logistics and ground attack weapons both. Anti-submarine warfare is probably going to be important. Oh, maximum research is... Okay, so I can't spend any anyway. Alright. In that case... Do I want to do diplomacy? I mean, really, who would I do diplomacy with? Prevent Spain from joining the Axis? There's no way I'm going to stop the Eastern European countries from joining the Axis. But I might be able to slow down Spain. Alright, what do we got in production? Couple of carriers, couple of battleships, one destroyer. Not much in the way of troops. You got the tanks, the corps, one headquarters, one anti-aircraft, one fighter. Probably need to focus on fighters. Do everything I can to try and outstrip the Germans in aircraft available. Alright, I don't have enough left to buy anything else. Oh, there's only 9 points left. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Alright, so that is going to do it for this turn. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. Alright, let's go ahead and advance a turn and see what happens. Loss of Belgium reduces British national morale. Yep. And Italy joins the Axis. UK develops advanced tanks level 1. That will be helpful. And American scientists report naval warfare development up to 33%. That is our ledger for next turn. Remind me to double check American convoys going to England, see if I can increase that. Yeah, all the damage I put on that corps. Enemy contact. 2 submarines. Alright, well, they intercepted once. I guess not a big enough carrier to have 2 intercepts. And there goes that British unit. Little falls to the Germans. Alright, well, I may have lost that unit in the Ardennes, but it did slow down a lot of units. Okay, Italy didn't make as much progress into France as I had anticipated. That's a good thing. And perhaps the carrier off of Calais came as a surprise. Okay, there's our combat losses. 15th Corps, 2nd Corps, 1st Corps, British 1st Corps. Activity summary. Sorry, just washed my tongue, can't do a thing with it. Alright, with Italy now in the war, our position in Egypt could be severely threatened. You think? Australia and New Zealand are prepared to rush reinforcements to Cairo, but they will arrive as understrength units requiring some equipment and training to bring them up to full strength. Alternatively, we could let them complete their formation and training in their home countries, in which case they will deploy for service in Egypt in late 1941. Would you like to rush these reinforcements to Egypt now as understrength units, or have them form as previously scheduled? Late 1941. Yeah, I don't like that. Let's get them there now, and hopefully we will be able to get them up to strength quickly. Alright, so there's the New Zealand Corps. There is the Australian Corps. Alright, another decision. Italy has joined the war, and her forces in East Africa are invading British Somaliland. If we do not take steps to reinforce our position in East Africa, then the Italians may proceed to invade the Sudan and possibly even Egypt. If they were to act in conjunction with an advance in Egypt from Libya, then our situation in the Middle East would become very grave indeed. Not only our imperial standing, but our imports too would be affected. It is therefore strongly recommended that we spend 60 production points to strengthen our forces in East Africa. Would you like to approve this expenditure? Okay, I really couldn't care less about British imperial standing, but then that's because I'm an American. However, the threat to our production and the threat to a potential second front in Egypt makes me say, yes, I do want to make that expenditure. Alright, Red Army headquarters now would be a good time for us to increase our territory and income by annexing the Baltic states. One strategic benefit of doing so will be to increase the distance an invader would have to travel before reaching Leningrad. If you approve, then our forces will advance into the Baltic states up to the border with Germany. What are the notes on that? If you say yes, occupying the Baltic states, Soviet income will increase slightly, so it is recommended to say yes. However, if Lithuania is currently neutral, then it will also be occupied, and doing so will swing the USSR 7 to 10% towards the Axis, reducing any increase in income for a while. So basically, if I say yes, any increase that I get is canceled out. Well, it didn't say anything about popularity losses with the Allies, so let's go ahead and do that. More buffer zone. Okay, back to Red Army HQ. Under the terms of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, Bessarabia falls into our sphere of influence, and now would be a good time to seize this territory. This will provide us with a buffer zone protecting Odessa. Operation costs 15 production points, with any opposition being swept aside, though it will move Romania 10% towards the Axis. I have a feeling there's no way we're going to stop Romania from joining the Axis, so might as well just go ahead and do it. Alright, Illustrious joins the fleet. Alright, so first things first, can we track down? I don't believe so. Alright, I don't even need to resupply him. He needs repair, and I don't have a major port that can do it. So I'll get what repairs I can. I'll try looking around for that submarine. I don't want to get the ships too far separated, though, because I want to be able to protect the carrier. Yeah, I know that one damaged submarine is not going to do much damage to my carrier, but I would rather not risk it if you don't mind. My other anti-submarine group together there. Ouch. Oh, that's a submarine. What's his supply? Down to 7? Oh, nice. He did 2 points of damage. Thank you. Alright. He can cover... Yeah, he can cover the Calais area from London, and I'd be able to repair or reinforce his air wing. Do what damage we can there. Cover him with the submarines. Oh, nope, upgrade the town. Thought I could upgrade the fighters. Alright, I hate to admit it, but I have a feeling France might be a lost cause. I was kind of hoping to save them. I'm sure everybody thinks that the first time they play the Allies. I can save France. I know it. And then reality sets in. Can the bombers do anything? Not really. Alright, let's get you guys out of here. Well, let's at least try. They've got escorts for the mission. Ow. Oh, and they still didn't do any good. If I transfer him over to England, is there a chance he could become Free French? I have no idea. Let's do what we can to slow this advance down. I'm probably throwing these guys away, but alright, he's kind of like my strategic reserve. If I lose one of these guys or they retreat, I can go ahead and I can plug him in the hole. The thing is, though, I mean, if it was me, when I play the Germans, I just ignore the Maginot Line. Yeah, I don't like conceding the front to the Italians, but I really don't see what other option I've got at the moment. Because they could just go around Grenoble and go after Lyon, so better to go ahead and defend Lyon. Let's get you into a British port on the hopes that you may wind up becoming Free French. Again, I don't know if that's how that works, but I'm going to take the chance. See if we can't catch a Italian ship or two. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Alright, I know the mobilization upgrade is pretty expensive, but I'm going to take the opportunity, seeing as how we're here in the desert. Actually, let's go ahead and do that to all these guys. This one's going to hurt. Yep. So yeah, that kind of blows all of Britain's production points. We'll leave the American forces alone. Stay focused on their research and development. Alright, so that leaves England with 54 production points. Alright, France is down to 2. United States has 95. We'll leave that alone. Soviet Union's got 61. I'm going to bank that. So I guess all of these occupations are going to go scripted. And if they do, then I can go ahead and all these forces I got here along this border, I can bring them up here. Alright, so that is going to do it for this turn. Oh, excuse me. That's also going to do it for this episode. So if you've made it this far, please, by all means, give a like, drop a comment. I appreciate the strategy comments, okay? Like I said, yeah, I've played the Allied side before, but just not in this particular game, okay? So there are certain mechanics, there's certain game rules or variants that I'm not going to be aware of. So anybody that can give me heads up on that, I very much appreciate it, okay? And then, as always, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. It helps grow the channel. Who knows? You know, maybe someday I'm going to have to finally stop working and I'm going to need income somehow. This is Virginia, after all. It's a Democrat state. They love to tax you to death. So I'm going to need the income. But yeah, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. So that way, maybe someday, if I feel like it's worth it, I'll go ahead and I'll monetize the channel. You never know. All right, so enough grousing out of me. Thank you very much for tuning in again, and I will see you on the next one.